Well, hello, happy Monday, and I hope your day has gone well so far. It's been a busy weekend and busy day for me so far, but everything's going very well. We're going to have a very, very interesting topic today. The panel is going to discuss the pitfalls of the holidays. We are in the midst of the holidays. Really, the holidays, these years starts in September with all the Christmas marketing and things like that. And before Halloween came, there were many stores had their Christmas decorations and things for sale and the like. And so I remember when I was a little kid, you'd watch the Thanksgiving Day parade, and it wasn't until Santa Claus was the last ride on the parade. So when Santa Claus came in on the Thanksgiving Day parade, that brought in Christmas, and then all the stores broke out with their Christmas decorations and gifts and the things. But we're in a different time now, so the marketing starts much earlier. So we are really in the midst of the holiday season, and so I think this topic is going to be point on for you tonight. So without further ado, let me bring on my panel. Hello, Asosa. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good.
Welcome to the show. Asosa is our resident nutritionist, as you know, and she counsels patients all over the world and how to change their lifestyle and improve their lifestyle with a healthy approach using nutrition and exercise and various other techniques in terms of improving overall health and well-being. And hello, Celeste.
Hello.
Resident pediatrician. She's trying to save the kids of the world and try to prevent them from becoming my patients in the future. And so Celeste uses a plant-based dietary lifestyle approach for children and helping them reverse many of their illnesses, because many kids have chronic illnesses, and she uses that approach. So, without further delay, we are here in November. Thanksgiving is this Thursday. And many of my patients, talking to them about the holiday season, what their plans are. And so what I want to do is, start this discussion off in really two parts. As we often talk about the holidays, bring about, good cheer, or theoretically it should bring about a lot of good cheer and good time. It should be a time where we recover and relax, from, the hustle and bustle of the routine part of the year. It theoretically should be a time where we get with our family and the sharing of gifts and sharing of Thanksgiving and just interacting with each other. But oftentimes it's different for many of us, and perhaps too many of us, have these pitfalls that we're having to deal with during this time of the year. So I thought I would get into that. Part one, we'll talk about the pitfalls, and then, after the break, we'll come back and, as we always do, try to give solutions to our audience in terms of how to avoid these pitfalls in a way to empower them to get through the holidays, not just survive through the holidays, but really thrive and hopefully make the holidays valuable and meaningful as they're intended to be. So what are some of the issues that, your patients deal with or your clients deal with in terms of holiday pitfalls, and what are some of the things that you're challenged with?
It varies from person to person, but when I was working in a weight loss clinic, it was mostly people just worried about gaining weight, but I had a track record of none of my clients gaining weight.
Wow.
Yeah, everyone lost weight over the holidays that was working with me, but that's because I had people earn their meals. And so I would have them increase their activity and do it like in a fun way. Like I had some clients who went and like ran a 10K or a 5K with their family.
Oh, wow.
It became more like a communal way to bond, and then they would go eat instead of just like pigging out and then not having any sort of way to deal with your excessive caloric intake. Now that I'm focused on a whole bunch of different types of issues, there's a lot of things that come up. There's the weight loss piece, there's emotional eating, and also just dealing with emotions, especially if clients are coming from toxic families. A lot of people don't talk about that, but like if a family is not exactly the healthiest place for people to be, the holidays can be very triggering because they don't feel like they don't feel like going home, or they don't feel like.
What are some of the issues you've dealt with? Do you have any anecdotes, general anecdotes you dealt with, particularly toxic families? I think that whole issue of toxic families, it's something that hasn't come to mind with me, but I mean, it's a good point that you raise. Any particular examples you have that you've dealt with?
No, I can't give any specific examples, but what I will say, because a lot of times then, like, the interesting part about my job as a nutritionist is I'm a behavioral coach. I'm also technically a life coach. I talk to people about a lot of things. And so some of it starts to go outside of my scope into, like, you know, sort of like what you would do with a psychologist or something else. And when it does, I make sure that they have other resources and other people to talk to about those issues. So generally, when we're speaking, a lot of people are trying to figure out how to, you know, maintain their diet with the external pressure of their family. And that's something that always comes up with every single person, especially if they're working with me and I've put them on a plant-based diet or I've put them on a modified diet where they're eliminating specific things. They're like, what do I do? And so we talk about preparation. I give them a lot of ideas for different types of meals that they can make. I make sure that they are thinking ahead, like what they can bring. If I have a client, for instance, I had a client this week who really does not like to cook, and she actually uses a meal delivery service. And so we talked about different places in DC that she can actually go. Like there's a vegan bakery, and there's different places where she can go and grab things and take them with her and her husband to their parents' house. So different things like that. A lot of times people are trying to figure out, how do I maintain it despite the external pressure? Because food is social. We forget that, like, food is a really social thing. And so it can be really hard if you are trying to make your life better, but everyone in your family eats ham hocks and ribs and all the stuff that you are not supposed to be eating, or that Dr. Montgomery told you was on your do not eat list. Then you're gonna have some issues, and people might make fun of you. I mean, I was hazed my entire life being Nigerian and being vegan. Everyone thought I was very strange. So you have to then engage. And the way that I dealt with it is I'm really good at cooking. So I would just make things and not say anything, and people would enjoy it and leave me eventually. Yeah.
Well, that's good. You brought up some interesting things, the food and the emotional component to it as well. Celeste, I know you deal with children, but the whole issue of alcohol and food, and when I was a kid, I enjoyed eating. The holidays is my favorite time of year because I enjoyed eating the food. I had a big appetite as a kid. But just listening to Sosa talk, I thought of something just now in terms of food. We like to eat certain foods and like to eat certain types of things. But then the idea of alcohol came in, and it's also a drug, and people drink a lot. And then I started thinking about, Sosa, you got my mind really roaming here during your discussion. I started also thinking about the emotional factors that come up during the season, toxic families, loss of loved ones, and the like. And are we drinking alcohol to soothe those pains, and are we eating bad food to soothe those pains? What are your thoughts? And before you come in, I'm going to bring Dr. Atkins in. Hello, Dr. Atkins. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. Good evening. Sorry I'm late, but I got caught up.
Happy Monday. So what are your thoughts? Or maybe you have other thoughts, but that was just something that came to mind in terms of the holiday season.
As far as alcohol?
Well, alcohol, food, emotions. Are we eating bad food as a drug during this?
Definitely. Around. Definitely. And I think, let me just speak on behalf of the children kind of, I think with COVID and the school year being an alternative school year and the children not being able to have contact with their friends, I think what happens is people are allowing more of the entertainment food because we eat for entertainment. And so that is what we're going to see. That's what we're seeing more of. And that's why people are eating more sugars probably this year too, as we talked about in one of the talks with our sugar talk. It does give us a up feeling for a little while before it crashes. So it makes you feel better in a time where, there feels like there's chaos all around us. Because I think we all can still feel this kind of change in our society, and things are definitely not normal. So in an effort to try to normalize our current reality, I think people, and that's why Christmas started before Halloween this year, because people are trying to normalize their lives again by saying, okay, we're going to have a good holiday season. COVID is here, so we can't meet up like we used to, but we're going to still prep all of these foods. The children are at home, so I think they're going to, children enjoy baking, which is fine. But, I think we have to be mindful of the volume and what types of things we're baking. And so that's where the danger comes in, because it becomes a ticket to allow the children to have an enjoyable time, since we've had such a stressful year. But we have to remember that, it can have long-term effect on our body, but also with children, it can have a long-term effect on what you're teaching them, how to take care, how to handle stress. Because when you do this, you're teaching them that take care of stress with food. And we know that becomes a problem later on in life when they are an adult and they are now stress eating. So, I think it's multi-level.
So stress eating, you mentioned another component there. And so there are multiple things that are coming together. And oftentimes it's hard to figure out what the chicken or the egg is. So in other words, the holiday seasons are coming. And so perhaps, there's some emotional issues that people are dealing with, and they're trying to mask them with food. And of course, I mentioned alcohol that may or may not be part of it with the kids, or there are festivities and we're enjoying ourselves and we may be eating bad food because of enjoyment as well. And of course, we're not exercising as much. And so these are some of the things that we're having to deal with. Now, you mentioned another unique factor of what we're dealing with this year, which is COVID-19. And so 2020 has been an unusual year in the sense that, we've had, we're dealing with this pandemic and quote unquote pandemic. And of course, the news media is all over it. So, the world, the sky is falling, everybody's dying. And so, people are afraid and nervous. And so we're going into this holiday season, and some places saying you can't celebrate Thanksgiving. You can't, be with your family. You can do Zoom calls. You're not even able to sing songs, or with your family, bring your own plate. There's a lot of unusual things that we're doing because we're in an unusual part of the year. And we're actually at a peak part of the year for having health issues and emotional issues, but we're in a peak year for having emotional stress due to this pandemic. And I think it's our reaction to the pandemic is more detrimental than the pandemic itself. Dr. Atkins, what say you about, this holiday season and some of the pitfalls and things that we're having to deal with?
Well, I have to agree with both of you 100% on the fact that it's a combination of the stress and the eating. I think number one, and I have to figure out what a vicious cycle starts, because, when you're feeling the stress caused by the media or your environment and the change that's going on, it triggers that flight or fright syndrome in people. And that tends to make them gravitate toward the carbs and the starches. And since alcohol is nothing but a sugar, also they gravitate toward that for the adults. And so then the more you eat the sugars and the starches, the more you get the highs and the lows swinging. 2 hours later, you're going to get a low, and then you got to go grab some more again. And so you end up craving these starches to come off of a low after eating starches all day. And so you're going up and down all day with your blood sugar, and you don't really get things that level you out, like eating proteins or eating, good fats, which will really help alleviate that, bring you out of that area. So the holidays is going to exacerbate it. The stress I hear now is also what you're speaking of, is with the holidays and people not being able to see family. it's a really strange feeling, even for me. And, in our family, we've always been big, since I was a child, we've always been big Thanksgiving people, where Thanksgiving was a big dinner, and not just the dinner, but the family came together. And so I think that creates a sense of stress and a sense of loneliness. So people gravitate, they go into a depression. So they want to feel that depressive episode with more, sugars and starches, with sweets, because the sweets actually make you feel good and make you taste good and make you kind of calm down. If I could just have that bowl of ice cream, or if I could eat cake all day, or I could just eat, potato chips, or whatever it took was my poison or food of choice. They would do that. So yeah, I have to agree that the holidays is going to be devastating, and I don't, I think it's going to take it to, I don't know if it's a new high or new low by going through Christmas and New Year's with people, because I don't know if they're going to be more depressed afterwards, because not only, normally people who didn't have family would feel lonely. You would invite them over your house for holidays, but now everybody's kind of without family, so you got more people having that sense of loneliness and depression. So I don't know how many people are going to jump off the bridge in January. I hate to say
Well, maybe the people without family will feel better because they know everyone else is without family. So this year will be a peak year for people without family. So the lonely folks are saying, well, everybody is lonely, so I feel good.
Yeah, nobody's going anywhere.
And then maybe also it could be just to broaden the definition of stress in the sense of stress in the sense of boredom for kids, because kids don't really sense stress. That they do, but we don't think about it like the stress that adults have. Yeah. But they get bored, and so when they get bored, they like to eat foods. So that can also, that also is a major thing, because for some people, yes, we have people where the holidays are emotionally a downturn, but some people are really happy during the holidays, but they still do a lot of eating. So, whether you're on the lower side or the higher side, people are eating. And I think it's just kind of setting yourself, giving yourself some goals before we start into the holidays, I guess, which is this week, and trying to stay on some type of eating schedule such that you're not eating Thanksgiving all the way up until Christmas and eating Christmas all the way up until the new year.
Well, one of the things that I always ask people, especially if they struggle with, there's a lot of things that I do if they struggle with emotional eating, but if they struggle with emotional eating, one of the things that I do is have them start to ask what they're actually hungry for. And in that moment, because a lot of times in that moment, you're bored, like you said, or you need a hug or whatever it is. And you would actually realize that cake is not the hug. And then maybe you will call someone and do something about it. So I think the reason why there are people on both ends of the spectrum is because, again, like when we're kids, we learn to either eat when we're really happy or eat when we're sad. And sometimes that pattern continues when we're older. And then we continue that behavior. And so we're feeling merry, so we eat more, or we're not feeling good, and so we eat more. And so neither extreme is necessarily good. It's just better to get into a place where you're in this balanced place where you can enjoy your meal, but have enough movement and have enough social interaction that you're not, so isolated that you're eating just from your feelings.
Yeah, I have a semi-solution, and I see that question, but I wanted to throw this in. So sometimes I'll tell parents to try this before you start dinner or whatever you're going to do. Remember, like when you go out to a restaurant or you're having a 3-course meal, you start with a salad. So if you're feeling that sense of hunger, just go ahead and get a salad first. And then if you're still hungry afterwards, then go ahead and eat the other stuff. But start with the salad. Every time you feel that hunger, if you're really hungry, you'll eat the salad. If you're not hungry, you're not going to eat the salad.
Please qualify salad, because lots of people have a cheese and
a plant-based salad.
Croutons.
Yeah.
But it's also like people need to stop treating Thanksgiving like it's their last meal on earth. Like this is not like if we treat it like a normal meal and we're like, look, I have all of these great leftovers for the rest of the week, that would also help. But like people are straight up eating like it's gonna be done after this.
Yeah. There's like a race to the kitchen. Well, so we touched on a number of good things here. The eating is really a big one. And, we sort of lumped it with drugs. We didn't say a lot about alcohol, but people do drink more this time of the year, I'm told, and I've read, than other times of the year. Not that, drinking is not a problem year round. And so there's a chicken and egg factor. Are we eating badly to address our emotional issues, et cetera? The issue of families, the lack thereof, or the presence of toxic families are there. So that's an issue we have to think about. And then the other thing about this year being a special year, dealing with the so-called pandemic, where many people are isolated. I was talking to my cousins this weekend, and they're a very close-knit family. And one of my cousins was saying that, they were at my dad's house after he had passed. And so they said, that was the first time they had gotten together as sisters in about, 4 or 5 months, which was highly unusual. And it was because of the pandemic and everyone's staying in the house, staying masked and separated. So we have an extra problem we're dealing with. Before we go off the topic of pitfalls and problems, I want to think of these pitfalls as not just pitfalls and isolations, but associated with overall problems. There are a couple of questions I'm going to address in just a minute. But the data clearly shows that the winter months, particularly, the December and January, but Christmas time is a peak time for deaths, particularly cardiovascular deaths. Looking at the different cardiovascular causes, I pulled an article here. Blood clots, deep vein thrombosis peak during the wintertime. Blood clots to the lung or pulmonary embolism, maximum during the wintertime, minimum during the summertime. Rupture of the aortic vessel artery, dissection rupture higher in the wintertime. And this is in United States, other European countries. Stroke, again, peak in the wintertime. Heart failure, more hospitalizations occur during the wintertime. Atrial fibrillation, peak episodes during the wintertime. Before coming on, I had a call for a patient of mine who's in the hospital with decompensated heart failure and anginal syndrome. Ventricular arrhythmias, peak in the wintertime. Sudden cardiac death, peak in the wintertime. And so we're dealing with a lot of these issues, and there's a seasonal, I think it's kind of a weird juxtaposition of tis the season for joy and being together, but it's also tis the season for death and sickness. And so it's an unusual, weird juxtaposition of things that where we're supposed to be the happiest, but yet we're dealing with loss of loved ones or illness, major illnesses. So how do we address this, and how do we get our arms around it and understand this? I'll show you a little graphic real quick. We have here of course, this is the graphic peak time for deaths juxtaposed with the beautiful time of the year. But you see here where we have Christmas Eve being a peak time for deaths, and then New Year's Day, peak time for deaths. Now, we talked about the holiday season starting before this time, and we know how the fact that, I'll bring the screen out, the holiday season is where we're dealing with these illnesses, but we're also dealing with the side effects or the results or the complication of these illnesses. So I've always had a theory that this progressive lifestyle, the emotional stress, the bad eating, the lack of fresh air and sunshine, being indoors, it increases the oxidative stress above normal. And so if you've had years of development of heart disease, and then you go into this year where, okay, you're increasing your oxidative stress, you're eating bad food, you're inside a lot, emotionally you're stressed out, that's going to predispose to tipping you over. And so I think that's one explanation. Now, of course, the article I've looked at talked about the temperature itself contributing to physiology of the body, lack of vitamin D. Of course, they talk about emotional stress. And I think these things are important too. But I like to think of it as, hey, wait a minute, we're going into a season, and the way we handle this, whether we're happy or sad, is that we do negative things to our body. And perhaps as we talk about the solution, maybe we can figure out how we can address this in a way to not do negative things to our body. So, the loss of loved ones during this time, feeding into emotional stress, depression, causing us to eat more. We're having more funerals during this time. And we go to the funeral, guess what they serve after the funeral? Bad food. And then, you go to the Christmas party, bad food, and so on and so forth. And then you're in the house more because of the weather and so on. So I think if we understand this scenario that what we're dealing with, hopefully we can then say, wait a minute, let's step back. We know what the problem is. How can we address it next year? How can we address it this year, perhaps? Let me hit these questions real quick while y'all ponder those comments. Zorro, eating bad food because it's a holiday is like putting diesel in your car because it's the anniversary of the date you bought it. And then Carlos Haynes, the nutritionist, can you comment on the pros and cons of having an alkaline diet compared to a plant-based dietary needs? I'm not sure. So you want to try to tackle that? Or?
I don't really understand the question, but
most plant-based diets are alkaline, but yeah, I mean a healthy plant alkaline, but yeah.
I mean, I had a CNS mentor who's been practicing for like 40 years, who was really into acid versus alkaline and would make people only eat things with certain pH, and that worked for her. Mm-hmm. She wasn't really into plant-based, so they were still eating animal products. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it would depend on the person, but generally speaking, if you're eating a plant-based diet, it's going to be alkaline, as long as you're not mainlining processed plant-based foods and a lot of packaged things.
Yep, packaged junk is going to be the problem. So, any other thoughts to some of the problems I raised? Increased deaths. What do y'all see in the pediatric population?
Well, I wanted to say something else that I had a thought when you were just speaking. So if we follow, and Dr. Atkins can probably chime in here because he's has worked with the land and farming. But if we follow the earth and what the earth gives us, right? So in the summertime, the earth gives us fruit for hydration because it's hot outside. In the wintertime, the earth gives us naturally in this part of the world greens because they are nutrient rich and nutrient dense. So if we follow what the earth is giving us and eat what the earth is giving us, it would probably protect us a little bit more. But we have a very difficult time nowadays, especially the children, getting any greens in. And then when we do eat greens, we're eating them cooked. So we're kind of changing the structure of them. So I think if we, simplify it a little bit and just go back to looking at what the earth does during certain seasons and kind of staying in that zone, it would probably help a little bit. This season is squash, greens, oranges, grapefruit, kind of trying to eat a little bit more in season.
Yeah, I would even say a lot more. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think that we should do a lot more. Dr. Atkins, any comment? You're our local farmer here.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. If we could get people to do that, what has corrupted that whole concept is the system, it's our food system, because now since people don't buy local, you can get your fruits, the best fruits year round. Whether, in the wintertime we get fruits from Australia, apples from Australia, the Fuji apples and Honeycrisp apples come from Australia, but that should only be a fall crop. So that's really what's confusing people. And people, again, will make poor choices because they want to buy strawberries in December and buy strawberries in March, when that's, April, May, June is the strawberries and blackberries. Those are berry season. So that has an effect on people not getting that well-balanced diet or a well-balanced, what I call nutrient-based, whether it's minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, that way, because they eat the same thing all the time. And that's going to hamper your immunity in the long run.
Wow. And I think we're going to have to do a special show on gardening and farming and eating local, because I think as both of you raise the point, that's a very important point to raise. And Celeste, you brought that issue of gardening up a number of times on other shows. And I think it's very important. We talk about gardens and that type of thing as though it's a cute thing. But I think gardening is something that we probably should treat. I mean, I'm becoming more and more convinced that in my practice, I'm going to have to start teaching people to garden more intentionally. And of course, I'm trying to do it more intentionally myself, and eating locally and things like that. And when I say gardening, everybody doesn't have a big backyard or farm or whatever, but we have some capability to do something. And so we need to look at where we are and figure out how we can, at least eat from our local environment, and to some extent plant things, whether it's on a back porch or whatever the case is, and progressively move in that area where we're, planting and eating our food from our local environment. Because I think that's more than a trivial point. Let's see, Zoro has a point here. No, this is Zoro. Blending greens with fruit is a delicious way to get kids to consume more greens. Certainly in smoothies, I imagine. And then, of course, Apricot says, I use frozen fruit in my smoothies along with room temperature bananas. So, these are different techniques. And what I want to do is take a break right now. And we're going to go to this next segment. And what I want to do is talk about some of the solutions. We've done a good job of outlining the problems and making everybody feel bad about things. So what I would like for us to do is now come and perk things up and empower our audience. So let's all take a break. We'll come back. Okay, so here we are back for part two. And what I'd like to do now is to talk about the solutions. Again, we outlined the problems related to the holiday seasons. What we talked about before is that, number one, we eat too much and we eat the wrong foods. It's not so much just too much, but too much of the wrong stuff. We consume alcohol. We talked about issues related to our family, emotional issues, whether we are alone, or in this particular time of the year, this particular year, when everyone's socially distancing, many people are not with their families. In certain parts of the country here in the United States, they're canceling, Thanksgiving get-togethers. And they say, well, if you get together, you can only have 2 or 3 people and you can't sing songs and that type of thing. And so this is, contributing to people's emotional depression. And so that may lead them to eat bad food more so than they would otherwise, or drink alcohol. People aren't getting outside very much. Perhaps the weather contributes to that in lots of places. So we're indoors, we're getting less fresh air and sunshine, which contributes to depression and so on. We also talk about this being the time of the year where we have a peak number of deaths. Number one time of the year for cardiovascular disease, sudden death, heart failure. So this is the peak time of the year where people are getting sick and dying. So this is contributing to our emotional stress and depression, which again maybe further contributes to the bad lifestyle habits, because we use these we need to think of lifestyle habits as a way of medicating, if you will, emotional downside. So what I want to do in this next segment with our team is talk about a way that we can, aggressively treat these problems. First of all, is understand what they are, understand the nature of them. And then the next thing is say, okay, how do we aggressively treat these things? So we're back with our group. Hello, Celsa again. Hello, Celeste and Floyd. So now that we've gotten everybody feeling down and depressed, we've got to, pick things up and give them some solutions. What I'd like to do is empower our audience about what can be done to improve their overall well-being. So let's start with the eating part of it. So you touched on some of these things in the earlier segment, and you talked about your group of people that lost weight. And you alluded to some of those solutions. Can you just kind of revisit some of those things with it? What are some solutions? How do we, let's go back to September. I know we're in November. Let's take it back to September, and we're thinking about the holiday season. How would you coach someone to plan and prepare for the holidays?
Okay. So to prepare for most people don't prepare for the holidays until a week before, and then they're all hitting me up and asking me questions. If you start that early, kudos to you. But the first thing is, what are you going to eat? Who are you going to eat with? Once you figure that out, if you're going somewhere, if you're going to a family gathering or a friend gathering or a work gathering or whatever it is, now we're going to have less gatherings. But if you're going somewhere, you have to figure out, the people, and whether or not they're going to have food that is actually going to be good for you. And if you make the judgment that there's not going to be a lot of options available, I always say you never want to end up hangry on Thanksgiving. And so you should really bring stuff. You should either make things, or you should bring things that you buy from somewhere and bring for everyone to share. And I always have my clients not focus on feeling deprived and focus on finding healthy substitutions for ingredients, because you can make a pecan pie, you can make a sweet potato pie, you can make cheesecake, you can make all of these things without using heavy cream, dairy, tons of refined sugar. And then it's way more guilt-free. You're likely to not gain a lot of weight, and you will enjoy the process a little bit more, as far as not having that guilt afterwards.
You touched on something. I'm sorry, you touched on something in your early comments that I think is really important. When I said start in September, you said most people wait until the last minute, which I think is really critical for us to. And perhaps one of the things, along the lines of what you're saying, is to be intentional and plan early. And as I think about this, in my practice, we start to promote wellness and nutrition. We have our restaurant with our healthy Thanksgiving meals and the like. And I was talking to our administrator today. I said, well, next year we need to start planning early. And of course, the commercial people are good at this. I talked about them, planning for Christmas and all of that. And I think as healthcare advisors and clinicians and the like, maybe we need to take that same attitude. Maybe we need to start talking to our patients and clients in September and October, coming up with a holiday plan. I mean, the thoughts are just kind of rolling in and just listening to you, because you immediately say, well, people wait the last minute. So you know what? That's right. And give themselves time to plan.
Part of the holiday plan, really, because a lot of people gain weight over the holiday season that they never lose. So they just keep gaining weight basically from September to December every year. They gain more weight and then never goes away. And so part of it is actually having an active, healthy lifestyle and getting your behaviors in order before the holiday season begins. And I just ended a Staying Ageless 30 Plus class with these women who were with me for 8 weeks, and they're all in this really great place, and they're all really intense now. They're like, I am ordering my vegan cheesecake and I'm sending it to my parents' house before I get there. Everybody's like, I don't want to mess it up. And so if you can give yourself a boost, if you can get into a little boot camp, or you can get yourself mentally, your diet right, your lifestyle right before the holidays, that's going to set you up better, just because you created momentum. And I always say you want to continue that momentum, because it gets harder and harder when you backslide.
So basically a pre-holiday health cleanse. I'm just going to make it like that, our health challenge, our health initiative.
Yeah, I always say to people, if you are the type of person who waits to the new year to join a gym, you are not a real one. You're not you're not really about that life, because you're going to be that person by March who doesn't show up at the gym and doesn't do those habits. So I'm always trying to get my clients to be on it even before the new year starts. And then you're starting the new year on this great high where you feel great about your habits and your diet and your lifestyle.
Yeah, I like that whole idea and that concept. So step one would be to start before the holidays and be proactive. So before those issues come in, I think September is not a bad month. It starts to get cold in some places in September. So some parts of the country, maybe August would be better. And put yourself on a 30 to 60 or maybe 90-day health challenge that feeds you into the holiday season with the momentum of doing that. So that's certainly, so clearly starting early and planning, be intentional about it, and starting a health challenge sometime before the holidays, leading into the holidays. So that gives you the momentum. Any thoughts, Celeste?
No, I agree with that. I will also add, and I think we're in a time period where snacks are very central to our diets, to our meals. Just because, when we think about, if we're going on a road trip, you think about snacks. If you're going to work, you're thinking about snacks. If you're going to school, you think about snacks. So maybe changing the what our snacks are. So, for example, during this season is pecan season, or pecan, wherever you're from in the country. I'm from Virginia. Remember when we were growing up, somebody used to have the big bowl of all of the nuts. And when you walk in the house, when I was growing up, you walk in the house, you start eating nuts, and it was the nuts that you had to actually crack. So there was a nut cracker in there. The nuts are sitting there. And I think the children would enjoy that because it gives them something to work for. And they're skilled to actually breaking the nut and getting the whole thing open without breaking it into 1,000 pieces. So, and also nature-wise, that prevents you from eating so many of them. You're not going to eat a lot of them anyway because they're very filling. But that kind of regulates how much of them you're eating, versus when you go to the store, you can get a whole handful of them, pop them in, and now you've, the whole experience is gone. So when you, in this season, having snacks that are not our traditional sugary snacks, but maybe trying some other things like introducing the kids, I'm talking about kids, but also adults, introducing the kids to nuts, how to crack a walnut, how to crack a pecan, how to, eat these things, having them out on the table. So now we're doing something a little bit different. Maybe the little carrots, maybe the little oranges, the little cutie oranges, maybe celery sticks. And there are a lot of different things that you can do versus our normal junk food snacks. Since we're home too, we have the opportunity and the time to make more of these holiday cute snacks. And I think I showed some pictures of things that people did, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time, just some creativity.
I like the comment about snacks, and before in other shows you've talked about have the kids participate in making them, because that ensures that they will eat it. Nicole likes to force feed her kids smoothies every morning. So they know there are no sweets or snacks if they don't drink the smoothie. Just the idea. Yeah, I like that idea. I used to force feed my kids blue-green algae. So they were forced to drink shots of blue-green algae. Oh, they drink about 6 ounces of each.
Yeah. If that's great. I mean, definitely when I can get the parents to do that, then yes, that is, that sets them up for a wonderful, that's a routine that the child is now accustomed to. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of times children are not accustomed to that. And so that will create a fallout in the house. It takes time to get there, and it takes the child understanding and the parent doing it too. The parents have to do the same thing. That's the thing. Parents have to get their kids to do things that they're not doing.
That's true. You got to deal with the parents. I mean, the parents are probably the biggest. It's probably easier to change the kids than the other parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, solutions? So I like that. I want to get back to the whole idea of starting early, because I think that preparation and being intentional, the snacks, being intentional, having defined snacks. I like the fact that, Associate mentioned the whole aspect of order that, raw vegan cheesecake or whatever and have it shipped. I like the fact that people have to be intentional about this. And part of the problem with the way we eat, even during the regular times of the year, is that we eat subconsciously. We don't consume consciously. We just sort of, you show up at a party and they've got trash and you just put the trash in your mouth. There's no intention. You say, okay, I'm going to a party with trash. So how am I going to avoid eating trash? And we don't think about that. We say, oh, there's a party. Let's go to the party. Oh, there's dead animal flesh and trash. Well, I'll eat some of that. And so we're very, subconscious and unintentional about this. So I like the whole aspect about being intentional about the way we should be that way all the time, especially in this time of the year. But what say you, Floyd, in terms of getting ready for the holidays? How do we tackle these things?
Well, I agree with the concept. You have to be intentional. You definitely have to be intentional. What I recommend, what I find success with, I want people to not only plan their meals, I want them to get proactive and participate. I want them to create a meal. Like if Thanksgiving's come up the month before, you should plan a plant-based meal, or get the recipes book out, because during those holidays you have time to at least take a few days off work and have time to focus on doing something for yourself. And during the Thanksgiving holidays right now, I'm planning for Christmas. The biggest success in my life right now is that I'm a bread addict, and I stopped eating bread. So that hangry, you said angry, you got me on that one. But I have a recipe that you use red lentils and water, and you can make the best bread you ever made. And I'm gonna put a video of that recipe and share it with people, because the bread can either be you can make it really thin, like a pancake batter, and make it like a crepe, or you can make it really thick and make it like a pancake, or you can make it like a wrap for a taco or burrito. And you can't tell it from regular wheat flour. I would never believe it, but the recipe with red is fantastic. So people have to be proactive by taking their reins themselves. I think that idea with the kids, the way, when the caller, the person who put the question about they force feed their kids. Well, I used to do the same thing, but I quickly found out that I made them do the work. I got them involved. When you get the kids involved, then they're creating it and they don't feel like it's being forced on them. My kids always wanted to drink, sweet drinks or something for dinner, but we wouldn't buy sodas. We wouldn't buy any canned beverages, things like that. And so they said, well, Dad, what we're going to drink? So one day I went out, I bought, a dozen lemons. I had alkaline water, and I gave them a knife and some agave. And I said, you can make your own drink, and we're going to make lemonade. So now every time they want to have something to drink, they have to cut the lemons. They have to go through the whole process and make one glass of lemonade. I don't let them make a big gallon. Make a glass of lemonade, and they drink that. And they enjoyed it, and they would enjoy that one glass. So then when we go out, they were getting a habit of not going to a restaurant, going to a soda fountain and get, unlimited refills, because, that's 43 grams of sugar in 12 ounces. So they get unlimited refills. And that's why I see other kids doing that. I don't know why the parents will allow that, but that's the habits we assume, because again, it makes the kids happy and they don't bother us. And so that decreases stress with the sugar again. So you have to get proactive yourself, plan a meal, plan a plant-based meal or just a dish. When you go out, take that dish with you. I would go out to my family during family reunions and holidays. I would always pack, they knew when I came in the door, I had 2 baskets of everything. And before we got halfway through the meal, I had to make more for everybody, because everybody wanted to know, what are you eating? And then let me try some of that.
The funny part is that people start eating your stuff.
Exactly. Right. You have to prepare for them, and that's how you convert people, really.
Yeah.
Wow. Karen Evans wants that bread recipe. Maybe you can, if it's simple enough, maybe you can type it in the chat. I don't know. But,
okay.
Yeah, that's something good. I like that idea. You mentioned you preparing food, taking it to other people. For years, when I have patients on detox, over the boot camp is now and we're doing them digitally now, but it's, 12 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
Boot camp is 2008, and it started in December. So they went through Christmas and New Year's on a raw detox. The very first time we did a boot camp. And we had to coach people through that. And since we put people through detox during the holiday season and other parts of the years, then, 4th of July, etc., the same thing. But one thing we had people do is what you're mentioning is to take food to the parties or whatever event they're going. And one thing I coach people in doing is that, you show up at the party and don't say anything. Let your actions speak for itself. And, you carry your food, let the hostess know that, hey, I'm, make up whatever excuse you want to make up. I have a health issue, got to eat this special food, whatever the case is. But whatever, because there's some social issues, psychosocial and political social issues you have to overcome. So a health issue, people tend to be more sympathetic. So anyway, but when you go, as you said, make food for everyone else. Yeah. But one thing I emphasize to people is this. Even though you're going through this change and other people at the party are seeing you go through the change, don't expect the world to change for you. Expect yourself to change the world. And so when you go and follow this regimen and people eat your food and they see this and they see that you're benefiting from this, you're going to save someone else's life. You're going to save someone's health because they're going to see that they're going to be influenced by you. Not necessarily everyone. Some people are going to look at you with strange looks and say, crazy things. But you're going to impact someone's life or a number of people's lives who are loved ones, friends, and family. And that's a beautiful thing. And so by doing that, you can change the whole outlook. I remember I used to go to these meetings with, I was on a board with this company and there's other cardiologists around the country. We would meet several times a year. And because my dietary habit was such, we'd be at restaurants, you have to order special things for me, and they had catered food. And I noticed over the years, we had the steering committee, the food changed, the health level of food changed. And so everybody started eating a little bit healthier, as more plant-based options and so on. And so I noticed that was, an influence that based on this one crazy guy who's eating this crazy food, all of a sudden people know that it's the right thing to do. And it pushes the bell curve in that direction. So be the change that impacts your family positively. And there's a lot of work and a lot of effort, as y'all mentioned, ordering something, have it shipped, making your own food. These things are not necessarily easy things to do, but they're necessary and they're going to have a positive impact not only on your life, but on the lives of people that eat there. And one other thing I'll add is when I have guests at my house, I used to sort of equivocate on this and say, well, a lot of people like meat. So now I said, no. I just have a healthy plant-based meal. So people know when they come to a party at my house, that's what they're going to have. But I make sure it's something that's delicious. And so people come and says, oh, we're going to Baxter's house and this is what we're going to eat. And so they come and enjoy the food and no one walks away hungry or famished. So I like those comments because you're impacting the group of people and you're positively impacting your community, and hopefully it'll have a spread of sorts, throughout the community and family.
I have one caveat for the audience. The other big question is when you go, and this adds to what you were saying, Bass, when you go to other people's houses, it's always a person who prepares a meal at the house and saying, well, you got to eat some of my food. And then people get offended and get highly upset when you come and you don't partake of what they prepare. Yeah. But what we found now is we always tell our patients, Dr. Pamela started this a long time ago. I thought she was just being too hard on people, but she would tell her patients, tell them that your doctor has you on a special modified diet and you're eating on a special diet right now and you can't have that. Oh, so you can't eat that. Oh, and then they understand and they let it go. But if y'all say, the doctor said, I can't eat right now, I'm on a special diet program and I brought some food with me. Then again, they want to eat what your doctor's telling you to eat. And so it changes everything. So I want to give that to the audience. So when y'all go out for the holidays, tell your family members the doctor has you on a special plan. And then that way you can take the pressure off of that social.
No, that health issue is important. I think you're right. And that brings people sympathy. And also, you can say you're allergic to those types of foods too. You can also answer that. You know, for the record, Nicole, she's selling these smoothies here. For the record, my kids like the smoothies because they're used to them. But we tried to serve a snack, Girl Scout meeting, and my eyes were open. Other kids thought it was so weird. So, okay, Nicole, we're going to let you off the hook. Smoothies.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that she said that they do it, I know that they're used to it, because other kids, they would, if they're not used to it, they're not doing it.
That's right. That's right. You have to trick them into it. So we won't report Nicole to CPS because she's giving her kids smoothies. Other places might, but we won't. But no, I like these ideas. So it's what I want the audience to walk away from this is with a sense of empowerment. So, you know, again, to reiterate some of the things we said, because I think repetition has its benefits. Start early, you know, first and foremost, September, October, probably maybe even August for some people, and start early with a total lifestyle change. Because, you know, as DeSosa pointed out, you know, you alluded to it in your earlier comments, you know, people, you know, would run marathons or have running things to earn their meals. So you may start with a health challenge very early on to get your momentum going before the holidays hit. So you start with optimal nutrition and exercise and doing those other healthy things, being outdoors, meditating, spiritual connection. We didn't mention this early on, but spiritual connection is important, whether people pray and meditate, however you connect with a higher being of your belief. I think that's very, very important at this time of year, perhaps as much as any time of the year. But get the momentum and be intentional. So planning ahead, being intentional, starting off with a health challenge early on, and then preparing for these parties. Get your recipes done ahead of time. You know, in September and October is the time you need to be looking up your recipes, your healthy plant-based Thanksgiving meals, your healthy plant-based Christmas meals. Get those recipes, start trying them out early on so that you're ready to go. And then when you have the parties and get-togethers, you know, every year you may have certain get-togethers that you attend with certain family members. Prepare for those things. You may call a month ahead. Hey, my doctor put me on this special diet, and I know the Christmas party's coming up next month, and I just want to let you know that, you know, I won't be able to eat the regular food. It's okay if I bring some things. I don't have a problem with that. I just want to, you know, let you know. Let the hostess know, and so they won't feel put out. Again, you have to deal with these socio-political issues with family members. Eating with family members, I was telling my boot camp members for years, eating with family members can be more difficult than eating at a restaurant, because when you eat out with family members, as Floyd pointed out, there's this whole social aspect and social pressure. Well, why aren't you eating our food, and this, that, and the other? You know, my family's given up on me a long time ago. So this guy's weird. That's fine. And I go to the parties. We don't have anything for you to eat.
Can I add one other thing?
Yes, please.
The other thing I would add is, in addition to the physical activity, I think we go wrong sometimes when we don't plan social activities outside of just eating. So like games or whatever it is, just because a lot of people eat to dampen their energy and their creative energy. It's just a way to kind of feel normal. I have to deal with my clients with this all the time. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're going to overeat and feel less powerful. And then she's like, wait, oh, wow, maybe I should stop overeating and actually create some stuff. Because a lot of times that's creative energy that wants to be loose. So if you can create stuff together, if you can paint, if you can play games, if you can do other things that are social, besides just making the only social part of the holidays eating.
Yep, I agree. And add other activities. That's really important. Wellness really want that lentil bread. Floyd, you send it to me. We'll send it to everybody through wellness@montgomeryheart.com.
All right, I'll send it to you. And actually, I have a video link for it also that they can look at it. One thing I want to add to before we go is that with your insurance policy, to make sure you don't have a hiccup when you do this, is eat before you go. We didn't mention that. You always eat. You know, we talk about making a meal. Make the meal for yourself. Eat before you go. That's your insurance for not going over there, and that hangry again will get you every time.
So that's really important. Eating before you go is really important because having a big salad. In fact, this should be a formal protocol before we get off here. Have a very large salad before you go. And again, I say quantify salad, healthy plant-based salad, no eggs, cheese, dead animal flesh, and create. I think everyone should have their favorite natural plant-based salad that's their go-to salad. And maybe you have a big salad before you go. Maybe you take the same salad to the event with you. But I think that's a good point. Eating before you go.
Before I go, I eat the whole thing before I go.
Yeah. So make two. Eat one before you go and take another one with you. But no, I think that's really important because preparing yourself physiologically and mentally makes a big difference. So, guys, this has been a great conversation. As always, I've learned a lot. I've taken some notes here. I want to follow up on future talks and future shows related to the gardening also, and then also related to planning ahead. So we'll go through this and we'll take a look back, toward the end of this year and work on ways of planning ahead. And we'll probably write an outline for you guys in the future in terms of planning ahead for the holidays. So I think this has been a very, very enlightening show, and give our panel a digital round of applause, those of you in the chat room. And everybody also, if you have any questions about recipes and the like, you can email us at wellness@montgomeryheart.com, and we put that up on the banner. So recipes or questions about anything we discussed on the show, wellness@montgomeryheart.com, we can get some information to you and the like. So again, as always, guys, I'll see you backstage. We'll wrap up. This again is a very challenging time of the year for all of us, and we need to be very proactive in how we approach this time of the year. I often tell my patients that when you're set with more stress and more challenging, that's probably when your lifestyle needs to be more aggressive. You need to increase the dose of your lifestyle intervention. You need to exercise more. You need to eat healthier, etc. Do a detox during this time of the year. So this is how you approach this going throughout the whole holiday season. And if you do these things, not only will you be better and you be healthier, but your influence on the people around you, your loved ones, will also positively impact their lives. So, take this to heart. And as always, until we meet again, keep it fresh, natural, and live.